The patented knowledge. There's probably a YouTube video on how to hack this.
Even in the working.
Yeah. What was it?
Radio, some sort of radio.
It's 6 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. First item will be roll call.
Brown,
Here.
Cox,
Here.
Davis,
Here.
Gerke,
Here.
Graves,
Here.
Now.
Here. Say the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everybody take a moment of silence if they're here. Take a motion to approve the agenda.
Could I have a question on,
Sure.
normally after a closed meeting, we just have announcements or something. Is there some reason that unfinished business is continued after the closed meeting?
We always vote on the labor agreement and everything after the closed session.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tradition?
Yeah.
Okay. Because we wouldn't know until after.
Right, right.
I'm a little slow. I would approve
Do we have a second?
motion, I mean.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. I've got a copy of the previous minutes. If there are no additions or corrections, they'll stand approved as presented. Visitor Faith Beamer. There was no public announcement comments sent in, so we'll move on to the officer's report, chief report.
Well, welcome back, everybody. I hope everybody had a good holidays. My report on page, well, it starts on 3. Basically, that first chart there is just a trend over 5 years. You can kind of see our fairly consistent increase in the PCAD calls, whereas Windsor's pretty much stayed right where it's at, which stands to reason, economic growth and so forth. The reds, I tried to group these together a little bit. The reds are Warsaw Ambulance District and Pettis County total calls. And the yellows are the combined total. That very top number is combined total. And I'll get to those numbers here as we go through the 2022 numbers. The rest were transfers and transports, kind of just a graphic representation of that. The vehicle mileage is the next thing. No surprises on there. We do still have the 3 in the yellow, including both of the transits. So we've only got one other, AV that's reached its golden years. Operational changes. We have been working on a guideline to fit reimbursement payment requirements. We went up and met with Bothwell's CNO, and I'm not sure what Maggie's title is. Okay. Case manager. Yes, thank you. Had a very good meeting with them. They liked the chart that we've given them, and basically what it does is it's a flow chart that gives anybody at Bothwell who's calling to arrange a transport of the patient out of the facility, gives them a flow chart of the steps to take to do that, to avoid confusion, and also make sure that there's indeed medical necessity for an ambulance, and that it goes through the right billing process. So look forward to seeing an improvement there. They were very receptive, and I think they're going to roll that out to their nursing staff later on this month. We already kind of follow it here as a matter of when a call comes in for a transfer. There's a lot of particular questions that have to be asked. We just put it into flow chart form. So that went up there. No major equipment. No work pump. The LED kits, I don't know if anybody can tell, but those are installed here. Those are non-fluorescent. Those are the LED kits. We got them installed across the street and over here, pretty much everywhere couple stragglers because of wiring anomalies, but other than that, we've got them up everywhere. So they've been really nice. And most of the time we can keep the lights off in the bay because the ones that stay on all the time are just about enough to see what you need to do unless you're, doing an inventory or something. So it's definitely made some nice improvements over there. We had some water issues, I think I told the board about last time, where we got some excessive usage. We replaced all the valve mechanisms in the toilets across the street, and I haven't seen any problems since. So that's apparently what it was. We could never catch it doing that, but it was probably happening overnight or whatever the case. That's all better. The WEX telematics system, this was one of the budget items that you probably might remember from when we went through the budget process. The WEX telematics systems has reached the end of life. The primary reason for that was the 3G towers are no longer in service. Then they depended upon 3G service for their functioning. We've still got a little bit of limited functionality down in Windsor, if I'm not mistaken, Ryan. But that's the point of us going to these ACE Tech systems that are already kind of gearing up and looking into at this point. Unknown time frame for us actually getting all the ACE Tech stuff implemented. It'll take a while, and probably we'll have a couple ambulances at a time get through it because they have to be out service and retrofitted and so forth. The software, I'm excited about this one. They're currently working on a build for this, and if all goes well, about a month from now, you'll be getting some different looking reports from me from that point forward. That's that continuous software, and it's an analytic software that goes through all of our reports and gives you some way better data than I've been able to cull from than the past. So I really look forward to that. I put the little snippet in there on the blue with some of the things that it does, just a very broad overview of all the goodies that it does. But I think it'll really help us break down our needs, our abilities to respond, how we're doing when we respond. And it provides a lot of feedback tools for our quality as far as tracking individual staff members' performance through clinical measures, measurable numbers in the report, all kinds of good stuff. So I really look forward to having that. And like I said, it should be, I'm going to guess about a month from now, we hopefully will at least be running some basic reports off of that. I did want to remind everybody that our office is going to be closed Monday the 16th for Martin Luther King Jr. Day. There's also, I didn't put anything in here about it, but I did want to let the board know there's a cornhole fundraiser, cornhole event type. I think they're eating out there as well at the Moose Lodge on the 22nd at 10 a.m. Our union basically got together and we're looking for a way to help Adam Ali, the individual who was in that really nasty motorcycle wreck last year. So doing it as a fundraiser for him. If you're around on the 22nd by the Moose Lodge, there'll be probably some good food and barbecue, hot dogs and so forth. So B Shift had a good Christmas. They got both Christmas and New Year's Eve, so they really appreciate the food, of course. January training, we're doing all the AHA stuff. Those are all your alphabet soup classes, from basic life support, CPR classes, AED, all that, all the way up into advanced cardiac life support. And both courses are scheduled throughout the month several times, so everybody that's on shift can find a date to attend when they're not working. Legislative, I just got an update today. I'll give the board a little more on that next meeting. It's really too early in the session. I have a nice list that the Missouri Ambulance Association and some of their lobbyists actually put out that highlights the bills that could affect EMS and or fire. And I'll give you guys a copy of that, but it's just too early in the session to know what's going to get picked up. Or, I'm sure I was told there's probably going to be around, out of 2,200 and some bills that are proposed, maybe 100 of them might actually make it through. So it's way too early to tell what's going to be. Anyway. As far as consideration by the board, we've got an agenda item on there, which is the union contract. The policy changes, I talked about that other SOG. It's not gonna, you won't see that in the policy book, but it's more of just an operational type thing. We have had some changes personnel wise. We don't have anything pending for FMLA, but we did move those two PRNs to EMTs to full-time positions, and those are the ones I already told the board about. We are going to be interviewing for some EMT takes the ambulances a lot longer to come by than the cop cars. We are going to be interviewing for some of those EMT positions to replace those people who are moved into full-time next week. Unfortunately, we did lose another medic. I'm happy for him though. He started his own business about a year ago. He's been working in the meantime, doing a lot of, dirt work and man clearing and all kinds of stuff. He's found himself with enough business that he's going to go do that full time and back off EMS for a while. So we wish him luck. That's Dalton's side wall. He was one of our FTOs, or actually, no, I'm sorry. A couple of our FTO positions that came open too, so we'll be filling them, but the big news is he's leaving. And call volume finally on page 7, yet another record year. I was pretty surprised we got as far as we did this year. I knew that we would eclipse 9,000. I didn't know that we would do it by nearly a whole extra month's worth of calls. So we ended up with almost 9,500 calls, 9,486 to be exact. That's combined both stations. Sedalia ran 8279 and Windsor ran 1207, which is, like I said, pretty much on par for Windsor, but that is definitely an increase in Sedalia's calls. Averaged out over the entire year, that comes out to 25 calls a day, 25 and some change, and roughly four of those being transfers a day, just to give you an idea of how much we're running every day. Of course, never comes out nice and smooth like that, but in reality, that's where we're at over the entire year. So I'll have some more numbers for you, like I said, in those upcoming reports, where we'll break down and see what kind of ailments we're responding to, whether it's wrecks, car wrecks, abdominal pain. You'll have all that information from those reports.
Can you clarify for me just a couple of terms? So the difference between the canceled, the invalid, and the refused or no care needed?
Sure. If you go, both of these are set up just the same, the Windsor and the Pettis County. So
Right.
we'll stick to the Pettis County one for simplicity. The canceled calls can be anything from we barely get out the door and either the caller has, it's an unfounded call where, somebody just wasn't at the scene and will get canceled by law enforcement. Sometimes the patient says, they'll hang up and say, I'm just going to drive myself to the hospital. Sometimes it's just completely unfounded, a third-party call where they think they saw somebody laying on the road or whatever. It's anytime, basically, patient contact was not made. We went on a call.
But for instance, there might be just a fender bender at an intersection and some passerby calls in.
Yeah, we usually make it to a scene on those, and those end up, generally, we'll go ahead and roll into the scene and make patient contact, just because, in a wreck, people a lot of times don't recognize their injuries right away. We'll at least make contact with them, take some vital signs, give them the opportunity to go with us. So those usually end up on the refused or no care.
All right, so what's an invalid then?
Invalid, this has been a really negligible number for the last probably 18 months. Dispatch has done a really good job of not inadvertently assigning us to calls. But since a call center it's all combined there, they might get a cows in the road call, for instance, and somehow we get tangled up in it will get plugged into dispatch information. So it issues us a run number. Anytime we get a run number, we have to do a report. So they're, again, very minimal numbers. I wasn't really sure whether to put them in there. They're not a billable call by any means, but it is something that it generates a report. So I included it.
So those three categories add up to 2,200 calls.
2,400 for Pettis County, and 426 for Windsor. Generally,
That's counting the standby and the flights of in the
also no transports. You'll see two different things for flights. The first one are the ones up there in that top where it says transports. The flights that adds up to 20. We did 20 flights last year. That were taken from the scene to the LZ in an ambulance, which means those are billable calls because we had the patient in the back of the ambulance and we transported them. The ones where the helicopter might come to a scene, however, we cannot bill for those. We do not bill for those because there was no transport by EMS, and that's generally going to be your really bad car wrecks with extended extrication where we're stuck there, and flight crew will generally show up and actually help us out. So That's the difference.
That's
why I
about-
separate those.
That's almost a third of our calls.
It's always about a third.
They
of
pay
those.
$0.
They pay $0.
Okay.
Unfortunately. Status level 0 events, no surprises on there. We didn't have any in December for Pettis. We did have quite a few in Windsor. There were some days we just only had one truck in there, but most of the days it's just because both trucks went out. So they would have a status of 0, but we didn't lose any calls. There was no delays or anything like that. So we track those again, just to make sure we're not over or understaffed. So no surprises there.
So going back to what you were explaining before, so if you were to come and assist somebody off the grant,
Mhm.
you didn't run them to the hospital, that would come under refuse or no care needed.
Yeah, basically against medical advice, we're always going to say against medical advice. Anytime you hit the floor, we always recommend at least getting checked out by your primary physician. But yeah, there's some ability to do treat no transport billing, and that's a question for the board as a whole. Most of the services I don't know that I know that are publicly funded don't do it because it's seen as a public service. Some districts, it's a lot more, the fire department responds to those a lot more than ambulance does. Here it's just the opposite. The fire department doesn't typically go to lift assist. But yeah, short version, no, we don't. Yeah, you're welcome. That's all I got. All right. Oh, yes, sir.
Flights transported from scene to LZ.
Mhm.
It's LZ,
Landing zone.
landing.
zone,
Okay.
yeah. Any of the designated landing zones, like we have one out at Station 2 out in the county. There aren't really any in the city where they don't like helicopters in the city aside from the airport and Bothwell. So typically, again, if we transport at all in the ambulance, even if it's 100 yards, we can bill a base rate plus whatever mileage there is for that. But otherwise, it's just.
And then on page 5, EPCR.
That is electronic patient care reporting software. Caught up in my own acronyms there. Yeah,
Yeah,
PCR, that's image trend delete. That's actually part of the software I was talking about with the analytics and how we enter our patient data and call that.
on page 4, the SOG.
Standard operating guideline, SOP, SOG, interchangeable. Those are everything from,
Yeah, I knew what SOP was.
yeah, just everything from implement weather policies to just the daily operations, nuts and bolts. Nothing that requires a medical director or anything like that, but we still have them.
Any other questions for the chief? Not, we'll move on to the CFO report.
And my report starts on page 8. I just wanted to let you guys know that the add-ons for Medicare were extended and PAYGO was delayed. We talked about that during the budget process. So that, I estimate that that'll increase our revenues from Medicare about $40,000. So that's not in the budget because I didn't think that would happen. So that was good news for us. And the add-ons are, I think, for 2 years. And then PAYGO is till 2024. Good news. Next page is page 11. Sales tax receipts. This is for the entire year of 2022. It's actually the last 5 years. That is all the way through our receipts for December. So those were down versus the prior year by 26,000 or 6.87%. Overall for the year, sales tax was up 158,000 or about 4.37%. Any questions on that? All right. Page 12 is our budget performance year to date. Total operating revenue is over budget. Same culprits in the yellow category that have pretty much been there all year. So after we do December, then we'll do that budget amendment to collect all of those. Total operating expenses as a whole are still under budget. Any questions on any of that?
The special events,
Uh-huh.
what was that? I guess we got them listed here somewhere.
No, they're not listed there, so, rodeos, horse shows, things like that, where they are required to have a standby ambulance on the scene. They have to pay a certain amount per hour for us to be on scene there.
Unless we wait.
So the only things we really waive for football games.
Yeah, on the lines, let me wait for our figure eight. We appreciate it.
Any other questions?
Capital purchase expenses, that $1 million on our budget.
Uh-huh.
We only used about 400,000, so
Yeah, up until the end of November. This is just through November.
we're gonna do some more in the December one. There's enough.
I think there was a few items that were purchased in December, not a significant amount, but there was a couple of small items that were purchased in December.
And what is it, the rent expense?
That is ice machine and the
Water
water
softener.
softeners, yeah. Any other questions? All right, the details in the budget performance for the annual budget starts on page 13. You can kind of see more details there. Again, operating revenue as opposed to the annual budget year-to-date, we're at 102.76%. You can see the details there on the ambulance operations, the items that are over budget, fuel, maintenance, and equipment maintenance. Radio repair has gone over budget so far this year as well. There were some radios that failed there. Total wages and salaries are slightly over budget for the end of November at 92.86%. Total employee though is under budget. Page 15.
Excuse me, on that page, what is EPSL COVID-19? We didn't budget anything, but we spent almost 27,000.
So that is the pay that employees get if they have COVID. So we don't budget that our employees are gonna have COVID every year. So that's why it's broke out there.
Oh,
Instead of working or vacation or sick, this is
Okay.
additional paid time off.
so that
basically.
come out of those others, okay?
Right,
That's good to report that separate, just in case there was additional funding that came out that covers the COVID, you can say, hey, it's broke out.
So EPSL stands for employee,
emergency pay sick.
these acronyms get me.
Don't believe me, there's so many acronyms. Yes. Any other questions on that page? Page 15, again, same culprits that have been over budget, still over budget. Just keep highlighting that those items are over budget there.
Did we adjust the budget on the accounting CPA for next year?
Yes, so what happened this year was that we didn't get the bids in until after the budget was already completed, so, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions on the budget performance? Okay. Page 17 is the details of those capital expenses year-to-date at November 30th. So of course, the biggest item there is Station 3, 715,000. We haven't done that yet, so that's the biggest item. And then the ambulance that we haven't received yet is the other large item. So the rest of them are pretty small items. Any questions on any of that? 18 is the balance sheet previous year comparison. Again, just comparing our assets and liabilities to the same point in time last year. You can see overall that assets, well, total current assets are up 1.3 million over the same time last year. Any questions on any of that? Excuse me. Okay, page 19 is a profit and loss previous year comparison. You can see the difference in revenues and expenses there year over year. And we have a positive overall net change in position at November 30th. Page 20 is the bank balances as of January 5th versus November 17th, which was the last time that you saw the bank balances. So quite a span of time there, but you'll see that there's not a huge change in dollars. There's $70,614 change. The bottom half of that page is January 5th, 23 versus January 5th, 2022. And then you can see the larger change there of $1.3 million. Any questions on any of that? Excuse me. Page 21 is just that cash reserve chart. Be able to see that in picture form, the increase in cash. Page 22 is our cash reserve analysis. So as of January 5th, we had 6.43 months in cash reserve. And in our general checking account, we had 5.38 months cash on hand. Any questions on that? Okay, the next few pages, 23 through 31, again, a lot more pages because we have a longer span of time that you've seen this. This is the details of the check register. Any questions on that?
I'm guessing JP Mowing just turned their invoice in late.
Yes. Yeah, we didn't get that invoice till just recently. There's no questions on that. Move to page 32. That's our current bills due. So again, a longer span of time. So we've got 2 meetings worth of bills, plus it's the beginning of the year. So we have some of our large expenses like our insurance. So that is why that is so high, $293,103.96. Any questions? The details are on pages 33 through 38.
One,
Okay.
do we get any kind of discount if we pay our insurance bill annually?
Nope, but we have no other choice than to pay annually.
But that is, they don't discount it, they just add up to, yeah. Okay, thank you.
On page 33, it says coffee from Amazon. Is that the packets that they sell?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know how many cases that was. I didn't write case. I think that it's at least 2 cases.
Yeah.
Usually order.
4. Okay, yeah, I was like, 4 usually orders it, so I'm sure he was on.
Yeah, they have a pretty good price on those. I've compared them to Springfield Grocery, and a lot of times they're cheaper than they are.
The credit card statement is on pages 30 through 41 as well.
Quick question on page 34. I read through there, it said oil change and replace rear shocks, $2,333. I said, oh my gosh, this can't be right. So I started heading west. I stopped at O'Reilly. I asked them to give me the price of the most expensive shocks for a 2017 Tahoe. looked at that, I said, Then I went on down there to WK Chevrolet. I said, how many hours labor to replace shocks on a 2017 Tahoe? They said 1 hour. So I said, So I went all the way to Big O and talked to that guy there, and he went through that bill item by item, and it wasn't just rear shocks, it was way more than that, so that's why I dropped mine. But one item on there said lower ball joint. And he agreed with me that those weren't necessary, they didn't install them, and we have a $214 credit coming back from Big O Tire. But when I looked at that, I thought just 2 rear shocks and an oil change, $2,300. Gosh, you had your front struts and rear struts and tire rotation and alignment and a whole bunch of stuff. It was a full deal. So anyway, when I read just these little descriptions, I know you could put the whole thing in there. That sounded the alarm, but we ended up with a $213.92 credit coming back. So, all right, that's all I've got to say about that.
Any other
You
questions?
jump at it.
If not, that is the end of my report.
Are there any other questions from Shane? If not, I would take a motion to approve payment of outstanding bills.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Move on to unfinished business, the election certification. Page 43. Motion to certify.
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Health insurance renewal update.
I didn't put anything in here, and you guys voted on that via text message. That information was given to you last board meeting, or I think it was last board meeting.
I think so.
Yeah, changes. So it changed to Cigna. And that is getting put in place now. And you saw in the bills that that $16,000, that is just a deposit on Cigna. And then for the reason that Cigna was cheaper than everybody else is because they offered us a 1-month credit. So that will be on the first and second month bill that we'll see that. So any other questions?
If there are no other questions on the health insurance renewal, we'll move on to the capital expense transfers.
On page 42. So as of January 5th, these are the expenses we paid out of the general checking account for our capital expenses, less what was paid prior to the original transfers. So you can see down there at the bottom that we need to transfer $377,894.37 into the general fund. And then those are coming from the ambulance replacement fund, building fund, and equipment replacement fund.
Are there any questions on those transfers? Not, I'll take a motion to make those.
So moved.
Do we have a second? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Treasury note matured.
Okay, we had a treasury note that matured on 12/31. That amount was, it was a $245,000 that we had on that Treasury note. So that was put into our cash account in that LPL investment account. So our current balance of that, go back to the page there. As of January 5th, that insured cash account had $253,070.38, because any interest we accrue on those notes also goes into that cash account. So what my question for you all was what you would like to do with that money that's sitting in that account. It's only getting 0.5% interest sitting there in the cash account. Our checking account, as of 12/30, the APR was 4.46%. So that's quite a bit more. And then we also have some information there, this LPL. That is the current yield on Treasury notes, if you decided you wanted to reinvest it into a Treasury note with the two different maturity dates. So the first line there, the maturity date was 12/31/2023. So basically 12 months. Yield to maturity is 4.595%. And then the second line there, it is a 7/13/2023. So basically about 7 months. And it's 4.553%. But I think we need to move it out of the insured cash account at the investment funds to get it into something that's getting a higher rate of interest.
Is there any wisdom in keeping the maturity dates staggered?
So we did that, especially on the other two.
Right.
Because that money is what we have to use to build Station 3.
So
This original 245,000, it wasn't encumbered by any means. It was just money we put into something to get some additional interest.
but rather than to combine these two into one maturity date, we should keep them separate, or they must be kept separate, or
So only one bond matured.
one is mature, okay.
Yeah, only one bond matured.
I don't see any reason why we wouldn't roll it over into this interest rate. But I'm no economist.
So our other two bonds, just for information, 361,000 matures 7/31/2023. And we have 352,000 that matures on 5/31/2023.
So if we went with the shorter one, we'd have all three maturing real close together.
Correct.
In a year
For
from
the-
now, we won't be anywhere close to being ready to shell that money out on a building project.
Sorry,
A year from now, the building project,
I would hope we would be close to spending some of the money, yes, but I don't know.
but it won't be to the end. We
Oh.
use the end.
Yeah, these other two are gonna mature throughout the year, so.
I tend to think interest rates are probably gonna start going down as opposed to up. So a longer one might be the better move.
Yeah.
But it's just a guess.
And the longer one ensures a stagger, yes.
Yes. More
I think
staggered.
that's as important as the interest rate.
Sounds good.
Was that a motion?
I'll make a motion.
second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Small claims insurance.
We'll take this one.
I'll just start with an incident
Okay.
report so you can, and then I'll move up to you. We get a lot of small claims, you know, we get critters, we have windows broken, we have just the normal wear and tear of accidents. This last one I had on the 28th, I believe, 28th of December. Really windy that day. We went out on a call around 65 and HH. Got on scene, opened the door, and the wind did the rest. Just took the driver door, folded it forward, got into the front fender, The estimate on that, I don't have. what-
I do.
You can figure out that. But these are the types of claims that we're talking about, and basically what we're looking for is a disposition. Maybe even a standing order type thing, if that's possible from the board, about how we pay these. Do we submit them to insurance, to pay them? The insurance company won't advise us what to do in that case, so we kind of need some direction on the board as to where to go, so.
So our deductible on these types of claims is $500. We can't, if it involves another vehicle, we have to turn it in because it involves somebody else. But if it's just our vehicle that's involved, that's what we're talking about, and small claims. And you guys can decide a dollar amount, or we can turn every claim in. We can also turn the claims in and tell them we're gonna pay for it. Like this one, the estimate is $1,823. So we can turn it in as a report only, or we can not turn it in at all, or we can turn it in and have them pay the $1,300 and we'll pay $500. But I know last year there was a bay door at TT that you guys opted to just pay for instead of turning it. So, the more claims we have, they look at the number and the dollar amount, so the frequency and the dollar amount. So if we can keep some of the smaller claims from going to insurance, we hope that would help with our increase in insurance over the years. Because our auto insurance right now is the most expensive part of our insurance.
Yeah, when I was selling insurance, it's property and casualty, but frequency would drive the rates up faster than the severity of it. And the insurance company would rather have $5,000 claims instead of 10 $500 claims. I mean, they would raise the rates higher on that one that had the more frequency. Because you're just saying eventually we're going to have, bigger claims. So they start collecting the premium at a time. So I'd say, I'd advise us to pay the smaller claims, not turn them in, just take care of them.
Not turn that at all.
So I did want to tell you what, I did contact Christian and asked him what his advice was, and he is saying that they suggest we turn it in as a report only and then pay it.
Wouldn't that still
Yeah,
affect frequency?
it sounds like it, but I don't know how commercial rates go.
So
What is the upside to reporting it and then paying it yourself now? Seems like the worst of both worlds.
Yeah.
well, it's still zero out of pocket for the insurance company.
Yeah, but they.
Yeah, but
And
Why
this
do
is
they
a-
need to know?
And this is a,
Yeah,
this is a thing that, it's like, it couldn't be helped. They got out of the ambulance, the wind caught it, it went. There's not much you can do on those. So they're saying the wind claim, that's fairly small and shouldn't create any issues. But I fully understand what you're saying.
So then we
The
get
number-
hit in that same door and they say, well, how do we know you fixed it when the wind went?
trust us.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm
that's
with
part
that.
of
I
our,
think
that's
we'll
part of our
just-
coverage.
Fix it and move on. Don't
you're looking
so what?
for a decision on this particular case or general?
We need to have kind of,
Okay.
what would you guys like to do in general? I mean, we can always bring it to you guys every time. But, right now it's such a long time span before anything gets fixed or we get parts. We've got time to discuss it. I think it's a month before we can get it in the shop, so.
Would it be does it not work where you can get it repaired and then deal with the insurance later?
You can, but there is a specification in our policy that says some language, if we turn it in after all the repairs have been made, it could result in a reimbursement less than what we actually paid for the repairs. Because they don't get a chance for their adjuster to look at it and say, this is what needs to happen.
I think anything under like $2,500, we ought to just eat and not say a word to anybody.
I agree.
And $2,500 doesn't go very far anymore at the body shop, I'll tell you that.
No, this is a fender.
A good raccoon will run you 4,000 if you're going fast.
Yep.
So you need a motion for that.
If you guys want to keep that as a policy, that anything under $2,500.
Well, then anything over 2,500, maybe we ought to talk about, but I think up to 2,500 just takes it. That's what I'm thinking.
I second that.
All right, I'll make that motion.
John Mayle, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Have no new business. Take a motion to go into closed session pursuant of RSMo 610.021, sections 1 and 9.
So moved.
All in favor, and that'll be a roll call.
Brown?
There.
Yes.
Davis?
Yes.
Gerke?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Yep. Even though you didn't call them.
She did.
Yeah.